Jimyip Sua, and welcome to the 8th annual edition of the Cambodia Town Film Festival. Joining us on today's panel is Greg Cahill, the director of The Golden Voice, Thavary Krouch, the director of Melons, Tristan and Voleak, the directors of Float, and Vanntey Morn, the director of Traditional Dance Teacher. And of course, I'm Caylee, the director of Paulina. So before we begin, I want all of you out there to know that all of these short films that we are discussing today will be available for everyone to watch online starting September 16th through the 20th at this year's virtual film festival. So tune in. Once again, thank you to these filmmakers for joining us. I guess with Thavary, Tristan, and Voleak and I, this would seem like the sequel to the panel at the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. So nice to see you guys again. For Greg and I, we've known each other for close to a decade now, and he's also a committee member for CTFF. So thank you for being here, Greg. And Vanntey, I understand you're joining us from Cambodia, correct? Yes. What time is it over there?
It's 7 o'clock in the morning.
Ah, 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, thank you for joining us so early then.
You're welcome.
So I guess I will start out with the traditional question of what was the genesis or the start of the idea for your stories, and why did you feel compelled to make a short film about it? We can start with Greg, who's first in my screen.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for having my film at CTFF. It's always so nice to be involved in this festival, so thank you. The idea for The Golden Voice, this all started 15 years ago. I watched a film called City of Ghosts that was directed by Matt Dillon, and that film got me very interested in Cambodia. And the thing about the film that hooked me the most was the soundtrack. And I'm a big music lover. And when I heard the music of Rosaray Satias and Sisamut Penran, I got really intrigued by it. And so I bought the soundtrack to the film, and I found myself listening particularly to Rosaray Satia quite a bit. And the thing that struck me about her was, I think it's pretty rare to hear a singer who's so good that even if you don't know what she's saying, you can feel what she's saying. And with Rosaray Satia, you feel the emotion in what she's singing about. And I think that's a very rare quality. And then I started learning more about her and her backstory and how she died when she was very young because of the Khmer Rouge. And at that point, I wanted to make a film about her, because outside of the Cambodian community, really no one knew who she was. No one had heard of her, and people weren't really familiar with that whole history surrounding her life and her death, even though the United States was involved in it. So in 2006, we made the short film, The Golden Voice, and we shot it here in Los Angeles. I think it was like a 5-day shoot, and it ended up being a 25-minute film. And we premiered it in Long Beach in October of 2006 at Cal State Long Beach. And it was really great because so many people came out to that screening, and that's how it all started.
Okay, thank you. Thavary?
So what inspired Bitter Melons? Bitter Melons inspired Bitter Melons. That's probably the most obvious answer. But so, you know, we can all agree that food can be emotional. Eating can be an emotional experience. I am often an emotional eater, and I wasn't feeling well. This was a few years ago in 2015. I was going through chemotherapy, not feeling great, right? Because it makes you feel sick. Chemotherapy makes you feel sick. And I was craving my mom's bitter melon soup. So, right? Like bitter, but also satisfying. And I'm like, I'm gonna scrap this documentary I did. I was working on a feature documentary, And I figured I have time, a lot of time just to sit, think, write. Let me write a short story and see if this will turn out to be something. So I took different elements of things that I was experiencing, wanting to explore my own relationship to my father, and food, and the significance of food, Khmer food especially, in the context of our memories. And so I ended up with Bitter Melons, the story. My husband also helped me write the story. And eventually, when I got better, started to feel better, we made the film. And so, you know, Bitter Melons was the start of it, the actual bitter melons, because it's such a strange, contentious vegetable or fruit, depending on how you eat it, because it has seeds. Yeah, and you know, we all have mixed feelings about it as Khmer people, as Asian people. So it's great. It's a great source of conversation, even in the making of it. And a lot of non-Asian people were like, "What's bitter melon?" So I had a lot of fun making it, and it is a personal story, and that's what inspired it.
Yeah, and also seemed like a really good metaphor for the relationship between the protagonist and her father in the short film. And also, after I watched it, I made my friends cook me some bitter melons because I didn't know how to cook it. So I was like, hey guys, I really want some bitter melons. Could you deliver some? And they did, a whole pot. It was amazing. Anyways, Voleak and Tristan?
So, long story short, the float is based on my brother. The protagonist, Rocky, is a likeness of my brother. So I, as a little kid, I was dreamt of being in film in some realm, but I never saw myself as a director. I saw myself more as a writer. And my friendship with Tristan, throughout my friendship with Tristan and eventually relationship with Tristan, I would feed him stories of my brother growing up, because some of my most vivid memories would be of my time spent riding in the car with him and him taking me places and taking me to school. He really took great care of me. He was like sort of a co-parent in my life. And just creating this was before Tristan ever met my brother. So he took that character of my brother and distilled it into the character of Rocky, which is what he saw. And together we just collaborated, and he told me that, like, Tristan told me, if we're going to make this movie, you have to co-direct it with me. You can't be on the sideline, just like helping me on the side. You have to have a voice in this. And so that's how I got finessed into the director role. And then after that, Tristan met my brother, and Tristan's like, yeah, that's a pretty good likeness to your brother.
Got it pretty close.
That's pretty funny.
There's like a scene in the movie where the little kids are like putting together these plastic eggs and like putting toys in them. It's a really very quick, like, cursory scene, but that was something that Blake told me about growing up, of like this odd job that her parents had brought home this massive thing of plastic eggs, and they were just told to like put the toys in them, and then they were put back in a bag and like taken away and gone wherever those toys went to, like the dispensing machines in like bowling alleys and stuff. And I just thought it was like a really great visual image of like 8-year-old kids like packaging toys into eggs to be dispensed to the world, but like never knowing where they were going, but just doing it to like help the family. So that was sort of what almost in a way, like, I feel like jump started the short, was like just that one image to be like, okay, then we'll build the rest of the world off of that egg story.
Very cool.
That poor immigrant under the table job to make ends meet type of thing.
Okay. There he goes. Sorry about that. Vanntey?
Yes, so my short film is called Krouch, and in English, Traditional Dance Teacher. actually, I just want to do something different from what I've seen. You know, I watch a lot of Hollywood movies and Korean dramas, and then there was like the Cambodian traditional costume, and also I was thinking maybe I should do something different, like to show the costume of the Cambodian and the dancing, because I find it very beautiful, and I was dreaming about being an Apsara dancer since I was young, but I never had a chance because I know dancing a traditional Khmer is very difficult. And then I have another idea, was like I noticed that in Cambodia now is more modern compared to 5 years ago, and then I was like the connection between the family and the children is becoming like far from each other. And also as a Cambodian, we often shy talk about our goal or our future, what we want to be. We never discuss anything like this with our parents, especially with the father. Like I took it from my experience, like I want to do this, but my parents want me to do that, and if I am like not strong enough, I would follow him and I would do anything like he told. And then I think, and then after like many years, and I got a chance to study in abroad, and I was thinking back, if I would listen to my father, I wouldn't have a chance to study and I wouldn't become who I am today. And I was thinking about the other girls in the village, what happened to them, because they always listen to their parents' advice. And because now it's like a modern time, the people using internet, Facebook, and the kid, they like searching around, they learn more things than their parents, when their parents at home cannot even read Khmer or knowing about internet. And then it was like, maybe I could do something to give a message to the Cambodian girls who's from the countryside like me. You know, you have to believe in your opinions, strongly deny and like defend your ideas, what you want to do, and you have to be like really a strong woman, so that you will be success in your life. You know, if you just living in the village and listen to your parents and listen to the neighbor, then you will not grow. This is what I think. And then I was like, when I was writing the screenplay for this one, I always thinking about my father when I had argument with him. But my father died 3 months before I made this movie. And when I write a screenplay, I always think about him. It's like I just put the emotion, how I feel when I was having an argument with my father. And yeah, just put all those in my screenplay. And also, it was like, I was like trying to make a longer version with a more compelling, but then because of the budget and the limits, so I was like trying to cut down some characters and then revise the script again and again and again to match with the budget and the cast that we have. And also the other challenge is that the girl who is the dancer in that movie, she never acted before. But I found her in an art school, and she was very quiet. She didn't talk to anyone. She was quiet, but she's very beautiful and she's good at dancing. And we was like, okay, maybe we should try and give her opportunity to act. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, what I find so interesting is the idea between the tradition and what's current, and how do we, as children, as daughters, you know, honor our parents' traditions, but also the new ones that we're creating. So I found that very interesting when I watched your short film.
Thank you.
So thank you. So because Cambodian content and stories are so limited, meaning that there aren't many filmmakers telling Cambodian American stories, do you guys feel a sense of responsibility in that sense, and did it make it harder, or was it a fuel for you to actually make this story? And I say that because my film, Paulina, was about gambling. And I was very scared about how the audience or the Cambodian community would react to a story that pretty much called out like the deep-rooted addiction that our communities have when we're talking about gambling. And I created an entire narrative around that. So for me, I definitely felt that like burden because there weren't that many films, short films, Cambodian American short film released at that time. I think it was 2013. So I was wondering if you guys felt the same way when you made your film. Like, did you say, hey, I have the responsibility to this community to like tell this story properly, or maybe even to, I don't know, inspire more people to make short films, short stories? We can start with you, Thavary.
I'll jump in. Yes, absolutely, Caylee. I am very aware of the lack of stories being told by Cambodians, first of all. And then secondly, those stories don't really exist. The films don't really exist currently, right? We're slowly heading in that direction. But I can't help but feel a responsibility too, because we all know that narratives are powerful, stories are powerful, and especially in the format, in the medium that we work in, films that can be shown to hundreds of millions of people, whether they're watching it from a couch in their home or in a theater. There's power in the mass narrative in showing our films, right? And I didn't, set out to make films to necessarily tell our stories for the sake of telling our stories, because I wanted to tell stories, but implicit in that is a responsibility to continue telling our stories and telling them in a way that's honest, like you did with Pauline. That's honest and true to what we believe and to our experience. Because they're not worth watching if they're not honest. I think people can tell if a story, if a film is being told from a place of honesty, of authenticity. So in short, yes, I do feel responsibility. I feel that we need more of us in film, in different positions, whether that's producing, directing, writing, acting. There needs to be more of us because there's power in those narratives.
And for you, Greg, what I found when I was watching your film is that, like, for casting, I was super afraid of casting because I was like, where am I going to find these actors that speak like, perfect, great, Khmer? For your film, there's so much like dialogue, and all the actors were just super fluent. And at one point, I thought it was filmed in Cambodia and you flew Sophia out there. But then at the end of the film, I found out you filmed it in LA. So I was like, nope, that's not a question I'm going to ask. But how is that for you? I mean, because you're like, I have to make this film authentic. Like you said, Rossarai Satir's story hasn't been told here in the US or for a US audience.
Yeah, I mean, it was, admittedly, there are a bunch of historical inaccuracies in my short film. And when we made that film, my research was nowhere near where it is now, because I'm still working on this I'm making a graphic novel now about Rossarai Satia's life. And since we made the short film, I've spent 13 years, working with her family and getting a lot of information directly from her family. We didn't have that back in 2006. So we did our best to, a lot of what the short film is based upon interviews I did with Khmer Rouge survivors in Long Beach, because that was really the resource I had at that time. And thankfully, a lot of the cast of the film were Khmer Rouge survivors. And so that was very important with the writing and with everything we did, costumes and the set decoration. We had people on set who had gone through this personally, and that was really important because they could give us a lot of advice in terms of how things should look and how things should be done. And that was also very important with the translation of the script, which was written in English and then translated into Khmer, and then a lot of the actors would have a lot of notes on that as well.
Who did the translating for the script, by the way?
Pagnawat Kun. And
Great
then,
job.
yeah, and then like Sapia and Narin, who played the older woman in the film, they did a lot of like tweaking and adding little flourishes of their own. So.
Can I ask you a question? My challenge was finding Cambodian actors. That was really important to have Cambodian native speakers, actors. Did you find it challenging? I mean, and this was years ago that you made the Golden Voice.
Yeah, in Golden Voice, nobody was a professional actor. We put out, this is back when there was a printed newspaper. We put out a printed newspaper ad in Long Beach and said, we're looking for Cambodian actors to be in this short film about Rosarai Setia, and we got like a ton of responses. And we lucked out big time because the first person to audition for the lead role was Sapia Pell. And the thing that was like crazy was for that role, they had to bear a resemblance to Setia. They had to be able to act, and they had to be able to sing and speak Khmer. So it was like, oh my God, voice. This is like, we're just asking for all of these things. And then she walked in and checked every box, and we were like, whoa, what just happened? So yeah, we really lucked out. And I mean, I think before that film, she had done, I think she was in like some plays at school, like when she was in college, and she had done a lot of singing contests in Long Beach and, you know, was winning prizes doing that. But yeah, we really lucked out. But yeah, we actually got a lot of responses. So that was really cool.
It probably helps that was in Long Beach. You know, the Cambodian American population is a lot smaller here in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. You know, like Long Beach is where it's at for casting.
Yeah, sometimes, sometimes it's still a difficult road to do it though. It's like, yeah, you also like have to convince people, because most of them aren't actors, that they should audition or they should try it or they'd be perfect for your movie. Sometimes like you would cast people who are the characters that you had written. So that's what I find about casting in Long Beach, is that you have to intentionally go in it with this would be great for you.
Caylee,
so,
I'm curious, is that how you found Jonathan for your film?
Jonathan, no, I think I found Jonathan through your film.
Yeah.
The Two Shadows, because I was at the Cambodian New Year's in the park or something like that. And then somebody introduced, I saw Sean, which is Sapia's husband, who's the protagonist in his movie. And he was carrying this huge ass Canon camera. And I was like, oh my gosh, he must be like, he must know filmmaking. So I went up to him. This is the first time introduction into the Cambodian community here in Long Beach for me, because I'm from Northern Virginia. And so I literally went up to him and told him about my project. And he was like, oh my gosh, my wife was just in this feature film with this director called Gregory Hill. You should meet them. And then I went over and somehow I met with Sapia a little bit, and then I met Jonathan, and then it just grew from there. And then I asked him to come and audition for me, and that's how it happened. He was like the first person I cast. But some of the other actors, especially Paulina, we actually got a Hollywood casting director. We paid a Hollywood casting director to cast for that role, because it was so difficult to get the young people to come in and audition for the role of Paulina. So at that time I didn't have the connections that I had now. So I just thought, why not? Let's get a casting director in here. So there was like a couple roles that was cast by someone else, which was like the sister and Paulina, and everyone else was cast inside the community. And I believe the casting director like held a casting call in Long Beach. So she kind of did all the legwork for me. So I did some, the casting director did some. So that was the story. So Voleak and Tristan?
We found Rocky from Instagram. We done like went down in Seattle kind of traditional casting, hunting, like theater companies and like University of Washington and like Facebook groups and stuff. And we met a handful of people, but we weren't really like hitting where we wanted with the authenticity, and it was kind of going more of a stagey feel. And I have a friend, or at that time he was an acquaintance, who's a music video director, who directs a lot of Seattle hip hop videos. He's Filipino American, and we had overlapped I've been in the music video scene for a long time, and we'd overlapped in screening at a couple events and connected that way. And I think put up like a casting flyer on Instagram, and I like tagged him and a few other people, and immediately he just started tagging friends of his in like the South Seattle community to be like, hey, this might work for you. And the guy who played Rocky was like, I forget what he said, but he's something like, yo, this sounds tight, something like that. And we like clicked on his account, and it's like comes up with the long hair, the mustache. It was like everything that was exactly in the script, and I was like, whoa, okay, this might actually, because we were like, where are we gonna find this dude? And so we did a community center casting session. It was like a weekend and like down in the area that's like heavily Southeast Asian. And I think we saw like 10 people. He was early on in the day, and we had each person, the script was always written to be like no precious dialogue. And a lot of actually what's in the film is almost verbatim what's in the script, but it was always under the impression that it's like, if you can say it better, say it how you would naturally say it. Don't listen to how I think you should say it. And in the casting session, mostly we were interested in body language, and the like telltale sign was to be like, hey, pretend like you're loitering in 1996. And most people,
meaning no cell phone.
No cell phone. Like you can't like check your phone because you're just hanging out. And most people don't remember what to do without a phone. We discovered it was like a very like kind of like shock moment of like, where am I supposed to look? What am I supposed to do? And Tony, our actor, he immediately just like posted up against the wall and was just like, oh, okay, you know it, you are this person. And he'd been on a couple music video shoots with his friend Terry, but never like in front of a camera, just kind of as an observer. And he just put in like 4 months of practicing at home and like trying. We sent him a lot of references for, I don't know, films like Baby Boy and like just things to check out to be like, I'm kind of thinking you're sort of like this, I don't know, check. And he would just keep practicing like at work and all the time. And we eventually kind of
practice on his customers.
And we just kept piecing out slowly the rest of the cast to make sure everyone always would like, he was the anchor, so they always had to like work with him. Danny, who's like the little Voleak essentially, is Pasay's niece, and Pasay's in Bitter Melons. Pasay reached out to us while we did a Kickstarter for the project. She's Northwest, or her family's from the Northwest. And we have a bunch of overlapping friends on a Sci-Fi Channel show, and they'd sent her the Kickstarter to be like, this might be something you'd be interested. So she sent me a message, and through her, she knew we were looking for the younger girls, and she was like, well, maybe my niece might work. And we originally had her niece slated to be like the more minor character, or the friend, and we were having the hardest time like finding the Danny character. And eventually we asked Peyton, the niece, like, would you mind just like reading for this main larger role? And she just like memorized the entire script immediately, and then did
at 8 years old.
At 8 years old, and like did the audition and just like crushed it. And we were like, wait, what? And from then, her and Tony's like brother-sister relationship became like much more central to the story. Originally, it was kind of like she was supposed to be a minor thing, and it was more about the romance. But like just the dynamic between them was they had so much more chemistry that
it became a buddy comedy.
It became like more of a buddy comedy with them.
Yeah.
And then through shooting, that became more and more
of a theme.
More of a theme. And there's tons of stuff that didn't make it into the film. But Peyton really like synthesized who the script and who this sister was. And so
they were able to ad-lib a lot of comedic scenes.
We have these like great driving things that we weren't able to use because of like shaky cam, whatever, but like it's so funny, her just needling him about like dirty rooms and like being a failure at this and that. It's really funny. But
I love how Voleak and Tristan's are like completing each other's sentence like a married couple would be like.
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm just having a moment where I'm just like, oh, okay, this is fun.
We've known each other since we were teenagers, so I think that kind of helps.
We're really lucky in the fact that we both have sort of different strong suits. So directing on set, we're pretty good at like, hey, you take on these 3 things and I'll look at these 3, and then we'll kind of cross-check each other.
People were amazed that we didn't fight in front of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I would be.
Yeah.
If my husband was directing a movie, I think there would be some.
we have a similar like.
We keep our fights private.
Keep our fights private and have like a similar sense in like where we ultimately want stuff to go. We work with a storyboard artist on everything, and so all of Float is like 96 pages of storyboard. It's almost like a graphic novel, and she is more by trade an illustrator and less of like a strict storyboarder. So she'll draw to the character, and so you can like flip through the thing and be like, oh, you have all your actors, so you can actually like visually see. And we had her do the boards over like 4 or 5 days, like we flew her up to our apartment, had her just like sit and draw all day, all night. But through that process, the 2 of us were able to like essentially act out the entire film for her to draw. And that really built the foundation of like how we're going to do the movie. So then a lot of those decisions were made early on. Oh, wait.
Internet.
Oh, that was me. That was me.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm actually going to cater this question differently. I don't know where we started. We started with responsibility and ended up with casting. But with Vanntey, you're in Cambodia. How is the filmmaking scene over there? I know you guys don't have a lot of acting and filmmaking school, right? Because I remember this conversation about starting up schools that would, maybe help the artists or the filmmakers find their talent more easily, or maybe like but what's your thoughts on that? And like, what's your approach to casting? I know it's completely different than ours over here, but obviously there's a set of its own challenges from a country of like Cambodia, who I'm not sure how much content is being produced or created. As a like.
Yeah, and finding the right character for our movies is very difficult. In my movie, I have to find somebody who can do the K-pop dancing and also the Cambodian traditional dancing. And then we were thinking, how are we going to find those? But to find the girl that can do the K-pop dancing, maybe we can find a lot. But the one who can do the Cambodian traditional dancing, it's going to be difficult. So we went to different art school, and we was like casting about 50 students who studying in art school how to dance, and also they learning a little bit how to act, but they act like in the count, not in a movie. Yeah, so it's different. And then we was like casting with a few girls, and then we found one, and she's not very good at acting, but we was like, we're gonna try her. And she's also have passion in acting. She wanted to be an actress in the future, But then we was like, okay, we're gonna try with her. And then we start rehearse. I start rehearse with her, like, you have to do the K-pop dancing for me. And I show her some dance from like Korean dancing. And then she was like, oh, I'm shy, I can do it. I cannot do it. I said, if you want to be an actress, you have to learn to do it. And then she practiced it for 1 week, and then she can do the Korean dancing. And the other challenge is about making movie here, you know. Before I start shooting this movie, I had to write the full script, and then I have to submit it to the cinema department, and they have to read it. They have to read every line, and if any line that they don't like, they would tell me to cut it out. And also I have to get the permission from the cinema department and the Ministry of Culture and Fine Art.
I remember that.
Yeah. So they have to read the script and they have to approve. So it takes 1 week or 2 weeks. And then when I got back, and then I'll have to meet them, and they say, oh, your script have problem with this and this and this. You have to remove them. Then I was like, how am I going to get rid of the dialogue that I wrote? Because I wrote it, I know my story, and I just, the cinema department, Ministry of Culture, they never write a screenplay, and they don't know what my story is going to be like, and they tell me to cut it down. I was like, I don't want to do it. But it was like, if you're not gonna cut your dialogue, you're not gonna make this movie. Then yeah, I took back my script, and then I revised it, and then I sent it to them again, and then they have to like it. And then we start shooting, and then they said, okay, before you go for shooting, you have to make sure you bring someone like a traditional dance teacher to go shooting with you, to advise you when you're filming. I was like, okay. And then I found some people to come with me, and then we had to ask them if the dress is right, if the crown, if the dancing like this is okay. And then we have to make sure that everything is Cambodian traditional, and the cinema department will like it. And then after that, we edit the film, and then I had to submit it to the cinema department again. They look at it, and then they cannot make a decision. It was like, we have to send it to the cinema department, to the Ministry of Culture and Fine Art. And then we have to submit the movie to the Ministry of Culture and Fine Art. They see it. And if there is any scene or any acting that they don't like that against the Cambodian traditional dancing, they would advise you to cut it down, to remove it. And then I was like sitting down with them and watch it. And in the end, they don't have any comment. And then I asked, okay, what am I going to do now? Can I release this movie? And then the cinema department, they said, yeah, you can, but before you release it, you have to have a document from the teacher, Cambodian traditional teacher, to prove that they have watched this movie and they think everything in this movie is not wrong. Everything is like follow the Cambodian traditional dancing. And then I was like, how am I going to find those people to watch it and give me a document to prove it? And then I called to a woman who is a teacher from an art school. I said, can you write a document for me to prove that you have seen this movie and everything follow the Cambodian traditional dance? And she said, no, I can't do it. I'm not responsible for your movie. And then I was like, okay, then I'm not gonna release this movie if I don't have the document. They will not allow me to release it. And then I sit down, like, just staring at the cinema department guy like for 10 minutes. What am I going to do? I'm not gonna find the woman who is responsible for my movie and writing down a document. And then he was like, okay, you should try to find a different teacher who can give you a document to prove that your movie has no problem with the traditional dancing thing. Then I keep calling different people and nobody agreed to write a document for me. And then I just waited for a few days, and then the cinema department guy called me, okay, so now we give you a license, you can release your movie. And I was happy. Then I went there and I get my document to prove that I can release this movie and there is nothing wrong with the Cambodian traditional thing. Yeah, that's a bit challenge for filmmaker in Cambodia, you know, because now they make a rule like before you release or you shoot any movie, you have to have the approval from the cinema department or the Ministry of Culture and Fine Art, you know.
So every single film, like even short films, you need permission from the foreign
Yeah,
ministry?
even
Because I know
even
a feature
music
film,
video.
yeah. Oh wow! So what would happen? No, maybe I shouldn't trudge in this territory. What would happen if you just filmed it and just released it?
I don't know. I think maybe you can, but for my movie, because it's related to the Cambodian dance, so they don't want me to make any mistake. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Imagine Donald Trump telling us none of us could do that short story. No. You know, all right. So I noticed that all our films have in common music or dance and music. Tell me, how important was the music in your film and the scoring of your film? And did you make those decisions prior to production, or were there songs that you found that worked better after the film was already edited together? We'll swing it back to Thavary.
I'm still trying to get over Vanntey's story. Oh my gosh, that's the level of
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So music. Yeah, Caylee. So I had shot in twice, basically. Like the first time we shot, it was for like the opening of the film for the first act of the short, right? Use that to raise some money so that we can finish out the rest of it. So for the first one, I had my husband's friend score the music. So it wasn't like the music didn't have to be perfect because I knew that potentially I could be changing it. So I wasn't too happy with it. It was fine. The music worked for what it was, you know, for a proof of concept. And the second time around, as we put part one and the rest of the film together, you know, we shot everything and it became a complete film. I was like, okay, I'm going to find a composer that's really going to work with me, because the first one, I felt like he wasn't listening to me. So the music he ended up making was not music I liked, but I accepted it. It was fine for what it was, a proof of concept. Second time, I was like, we're going to scrap this composer and his music, and we're going to find someone who's going to listen to me and work with me. And so there was someone who reached out to me when we were shooting the first time. But I told him, you know, I already agreed to work with someone else. However, there could be an opportunity to work on it down the road once it's all done. And so I reached out to him again, and he was gracious. So David, Deutsch, who also is based in LA, was gracious enough to say, yeah, let's do this. So, and the music, I knew that I wanted instrumental, and I knew that I wanted strings. And what the first composer told me was that it would be too melodramatic. And I'm telling myself, well, that's what I want. I want some melodrama, and I'm okay with that. But so again, like that was the sign that told me, all right, not the composer for me, not the music for me. But again, this was also my husband's friend, so like some politics was involved. So I'm like, okay, we'll work with you. And David, the second time around, my second composer, my official final composer, was like, yeah, let's. He just took everything I asked and worked with it and made something beautiful. And so a big part of the music and how it came out and why I really, you know, I was really happy with what he produced, but also I was just really happy with him and having worked with someone who wasn't listening, and then to transition to someone who was like fully receptive and totally a partner in the making of that music. Like was everything. Yeah, that's my answer.
Greg, thanks for sharing that, by the way, because I know how challenging composing music could be. I do it, and I don't speak the language of music, so I always have to tell my composer feelings instead. I'm like, I feel this way about this scene. So, Greg, your film, and we were discussing this a lot as we were watching it. Did Sophia sing any of the songs in your film? Because sometimes I felt like she did, because she has a beautiful voice, and I know that the opening scene, I felt it was Rasrai Satya, but I wondered if you had like intermingled their voices somehow, and if that decision was made prior to or on set, or how did that work? Like, what was?
Yeah, the opening scene is Satya performing in a nightclub, and that's actually Rasrai Satya singing with Sophia lip syncing. But then throughout the film, there's a bunch of times where she sings with no music. It's just her. So that's really her. The thing that she was amazing at doing was, of course, anytime she sang on camera, would have to shoot it, multiple takes from multiple angles. So her performance had to be very consistent from take to take. And we were worried about that because we wanted to dissolve between different shots of her singing. And the amazing thing about her is her performance was so consistent from take to take, singing at the same speed and pitch and everything. So it was really, she's really, really talented. But yeah, it's pretty much all her singing with the exception of the opening scene. And then, in the end credits, we roll a couple Rasrai Satya greatest hits. But you were asking about, like, ever since when we made that film back then, at that time, finding original recordings of Rasrai Satya was very hard, because if you went into a Cambodian music shop in Long Beach, they had 1 million CDs, but a lot of them were overdubbed with like keyboards and drum machines and stuff. So it was really hard to find original music. But lately, there's a guy in Florida, Ratana Kudam, who has a organization called Cambodian Vintage Music Archive, and he collects original vinyl records, and he has this huge collection, and he digitizes them, and he works with the families of the musicians so that they're paid royalties when he sells it on iTunes and stuff. So he has this enormous collection of original recordings, and when you hear them, it's amazing to hear these original recordings, because I've always heard like these overdubbed versions that aren't true to the original. So that stuff is out there now, and it's really cool. If you are a fan of old Cambodian music, I'd really recommend checking that out to hear the original recordings. And the thing that's so crazy is how many recordings there are. I think Rasrai Satya recorded close to 1,000 songs in her career, and Sensissimo is like over 2,000 songs. So it's just the quantity of music it's kind of overwhelming, but it's starting to be out there to, you can now hear it in its original form.
So how shortly after did you and Sophia, if you guys didn't know, Greg and Sophia is part of a group that Greg formed called Entra Devi. And they do really kick-ass music. I love them, and I've been using their music in some of my movies and trailers for a very long time, so check them out. But how long after you guys wrapped that short film did you guys thought, oh, we should form this group?
It was like 5 years later.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, we did the short film in 2006, and I think we started recording Indra Devi in, I think it was like the end of 2011. Yeah, so it was like 5 years later. Yeah.
Okay, Voleak and Tristan?
All right, so we wanted the music is anachronistic to the era. Everything else was like, has to be perfect of the date of when the movie exists, but the music, we wanted to showcase Seattle contemporary artists rather that have a more vintagey, I guess, I don't know if vintage is the right word, but they sound like they could have existed in the 90s and put the spotlight on them rather than looking back to like what was happening in Seattle at the time. There's a lot of good Seattle music from the 90s, but we'd rather put on new artists to like help them rather than our friends than to like try and track down someone who maybe is or is not making music anymore. So it kind of was almost like a snowball effect. Like we reached out to one person who I'd been listening to just on Bandcamp. And when we did the Kickstarter, and I was like, I love your music, man. Can we use like one of your instrumentals on our Kickstarter video? And who knows if we were gonna hear back. He immediately wrote back and was like, can I apply to like be the composer of your movie? And we were like, whoa, okay. And we ended up using a couple of his tracks in the film, but ultimately we kind of decided that we wanted to do this greater showcase of different artists. They're all kind of part of a loose collective, like everyone is sort of friends, and a lot of the like getting the music was one dude texting another guy being like, hey man, do you want to like be part of this? And they all were artists that we have kind of followed more or less their careers since they've started, and people that were just like, man, it'd be really rad to like showcase them. So that was kind of like, and it became more of like a mix tape to go with like the mixtape world that Rocky lives in. So that's kind of the greater score was created that way. What's interesting, the song that Rocky sings in the nightclub, it was always this like dark horse of like, can Tony sing? Because we just kept going with the film being like, well, maybe he's been practicing, and it's like we had no idea if he actually would be able to sing this song. And we kind of were banking on like, well, if we can't, as long as he can lip sync it, we'll find someone to dub it. And there's such a hilarious take of him singing. It's not him singing the song in the film.
Yeah.
But he does a good job pretending to be it. And the person who's actually singing the song is Lil Lazy, who's a break dancer, who's part of the Massive Monkeys crew from Seattle, which is connected to another film that you guys are playing in the festival.
Yeah.
The like lazy senior, I guess. So I haven't seen that documentary, and I'm actually like really curious to watch it now because I didn't realize there was an older lazy.
Oh, okay.
So that was a really interesting connection.
I know who you're talking about now. So
Yeah.
sorry. It took me a moment to catch up. I was like, what is he talking about?
No, so the younger Lil Lazy, who's older than we are now, but like
Young Lazy.
We both of us grew up.
Super lazy.
Yeah, this is really, we're in the weeds now. But like, both of us like grew up knowing of the Massive Monkeys and like being really into like breakdancing and like seeing breakdance battles and stuff. So when we found this link, we had a friend who we'd met through the whole process of the movie. He was like, I'm friends with Lazy. I can like connect you to him. He's stopped breaking, but he's super into karaoke and has an amazing voice. And we're like, oh man, that is perfect. And we ended up doing he ended up being very sort of camera shy, and like we did the whole recording with him recording it on his karaoke machine in his house, sending us MP3s, and then we put it to our sound designer, and it ended up working really well, not having like a studio sound because we wanted it dustier, and the PA system of the club is not supposed to be the best, and like it ended up really working in our favor to like do the process this way. But it was just like an interesting full circle, like how it all came together, knowing that it's the pivotal moment of this movie, and we didn't know if we'd find the person to sing it.
Yeah. It was a good moment. It was a good moment. I laugh every time I like see that moment. I'm just like, this is just the culmination of everything. So Vanntey, do you want to talk about the music and the sound in your movie?
Yes, we have one Khmer music composer and to do this music for us. And I was telling him that I want to have this type of feeling and I want to make it pure Cambodian, but not the recently music that popular in Cambodia, but I want to show the old music, like Cambodian poem or something. And then it was like, oh no, it's gonna be difficult. Maybe we should try some music that already popular in Cambodia, that young people liked it. And I was like, no, I want to do something different. And then we was like writing some lyrics, and then we were like, maybe we have a girl singing this song and without any music instrument, just her voice, and make it sounds like an old Khmer poem, like Mahauri.
Is that the part where she sings the father song?
Yeah.
That was the main character. Sorry, I was like, she sounded so beautiful. I thought I didn't know. Sorry, keep going.
No, it's not the main character songs. Actually, we just pick a friend who do the voiceover for the news, and that she has a beautiful voice. And then we said, can you try singing this song for us? And she started to sing it, like, and then we was like, give her a little bit of direction, like you have to like up and down for her voice, and then you have to make it like the Mahauri, playing Mahauri, the Cambodian traditional song that they play during the wedding, something that you should make it sound like that. And then she was trying a few times, and then we were like, okay, it sounds beautiful. And then the music composer was like, do you want any like background music on top of her voice? I said, no, we just want this. We want to make something different. And then we used that music for our short film. And then for some track, our music composer, he composed it based on the traditional old song. Yeah. We don't have a lot of music in our movie, but the main one is the ending of the movie. That's what we like, and we're working hard on it.
Cool. So we're about reaching the end here, but I wanted, this question was actually submitted because our section is called Tell Me a Short Story. We also kind of want to get the question for people who actually wants to make a short film. So the last question here is, how long did each of you take to make the film, from conception to editing? And some of you had different ways of funding the film. Could you talk about that and the budget of each short film? Because apparently our audiences want to know if this is also possible for them if they decide they want to make a short story. So yeah, who wants to start with this massive one? Greg?
Okay, I'm trying to remember. So I think from start to finish for us, it was about 6 months. Wow. I think the writing started February 2006, and we finished post, I think it was October, like early October 2006. So it was actually very fast. What was your other question? Budget?
Budget, yeah.
Budget. I think it was about 30,000, and that was for a 5-day shoot. And you also got to remember that's 2006, so I'm not sure how that would translate now. And also you got to remember that on our short film, there were a lot of volunteers. You know, it's not like, and we were all like, most of the people involved in that film, we were all very young. We were fresh out of film school, and a lot of people didn't mind volunteering their time, you know, when you're 22 years old. But I feel like it gets a little harder as you get older, and you want people to donate their time for 14 hours a day. It gets harder, so the cost goes up with that as well. But we were lucky back then that we did have a lot of people volunteering their time to help us out. I remember like my girlfriend at the time was doing all of our catering and craft service, and you know, there was a lot of stuff like that. And like, you know, our DP was just so excited to work on a project like this. And you know, so we had a lot of favors. I mean, I remember our biggest expense was locations. You know, because you have to have insurance and permits, and the location fees and site reps and everything. And I remember that added up quite a bit. And I do remember we rented a bit of lighting and camera and so forth, and those things can add, and sound, those things added up as well. But at the time, we did save a lot of money. A lot of the labor costs you'd have, again, a lot of people worked for very low rates because it was kind of like a student film production. So we did save some money because of that.
Did you shoot on digital or was it film? Because
that was yeah, it was digital. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thavary?
Unmute myself. First of all, I just want to say, like, just think small when you're going out to write your short story with the intent of making it. Just think small and simple. So ours took longer than your typical short. And part of it was wanting to build like a longer time of audience engagement so we can use also that time to further develop the script and raise money to finish out the rest of it. So like I mentioned earlier, we wrote the script, drafted the script with the intent of shooting the first like the first act of it, and then using it as a proof of concept to raise money for the rest of it. And it took from, so 2015, started writing it, like late 2015. I was eventually awarded a grant, like a local Chicago grant to finish out the rest of it. And also to shoot the proof of concept. So let's see, wrote the script in 2015, shot in 2016, shot again in 2017, and really didn't finish until 2018. Or like 2019. It's a long time for a short. And it doesn't have to be. It just depends on like what your goals are, and you know, and again, the simpler the story, typically the faster and easier and more sort of manageable it is, right? You know, I made shorts in film school, and I made shorts like over a weekend with some friends. So it just depends on what your goals are, and it's doable. I mean, that's the beauty of short films, is it's a great place to practice your skills. It's a great place to get your friends together, to make something on a really low budget, whether that's like one location, minimal number of characters, one scene, 1 to 2 scenes, just keep it really simple, which tends to be harder. It's shorts, I think, tend to be harder to tell the story of a short, but it's a wonderful thing to have, to build a body of work. That's what you want to do as well as a filmmaker, like build your body of work and do it through shorts, because you can do it. You know, they're compact, they're incremental. You can make shorts over a quick amount of time, a short amount of time. So, and our budget was also about the same as Greg's, like 30,000 over the course of those years.
Yeah, thanks. Voleak and Tristan?
So the film originally started out as a feature that I had written in like 2012 or something around there, that Rocky was became the lead character of, but it was a much bigger scope project, and we kept being like, man, how in the world are we going to make this? And it sort of sat there forever. And I think in talking to a producer friend, he was like, see if you can just take the Rocky story and make something out of that, and like push all the other stuff to the side and just kind of write something new. So as an exercise, we kind of brainstormed, started working on that, and really quickly wrote the script in the summer of 2016. 2015. Wrote the script in like, I don't know, 3 weeks or less. And then that friend was like, all right, I'm gonna jump on as a producer. Like, we're gonna get this Kickstarter going in September. We gotta get the Kickstarter to end before Thanksgiving. All right, let's go. And then we launched the Kickstarter and he moved to LA. And So we were like,
we were abandoned.
We were abandoned ship, but like the Kickstarter was already going, and we were like, okay,
well, we have to make this now.
We're going all in on it.
Kickstarter.
We knew if we raised half, so our budget was also about 30,000 or so by the end of it. We knew if we raised half on the Kickstarter, it was enough to pay the key crew to like do the shoot, which was a 4-day shoot. And then we'd figure out like how to come up with post and everything else later. As long as we could like pay that first 4 days, we'll make it work. And the Kickstarter was like funded right at like the 11th hour, like literally at like 1 a.m. the night it ended. And we're like, okay, I guess we're making this movie now. Through the winter, we did the casting and like workshopping, finding locations. I mean, it was kind of like a start from scratch. I, along with the music video world, I worked in commercials and I still work in commercials. And so I was able to kind of leverage friends and crew and whatnot from the commercial world. And so that was helpful in terms of like gear and just the general insurance and like just the general like setting up a production part. So that wasn't as difficult. We shot in February. As we were like leading into February, the DP that we normally work with suddenly was like, wait, what days are we shooting? And he had a conflict because he was like working with Comedy Central or something. It was like a huge project. And we were like, oh, man, it was like, okay, you have to do that job instead of our job that like pays you no money. And so our AD was excellent, and he talked me off a ledge of wanting to cancel everything because we didn't have a DP like 2 weeks out. And he was like, I have a good friend from film school. You know, we work together. Like I'll keep this dude in line. Like, just, you know, let's give it a shot and see, make it work. And I'm a very like, image-driven person, and also like tech and research. So I really like went through all these camera tests and all this stuff to like figure out exactly what I want. So I was able to like talk with this person I never met before, and like he was like, man, you're actually making me feel more comfortable. And I was like, good, that makes me feel more comfortable. So we were able to shoot in February over Valentine's Day, which our crew was laughing at us that like only the two of us would like schedule a shoot on Valentine's Day.
In the rain for 4 days.
Pouring rain.
We forgot.
We didn't even realize. And then post kind of took us through the spring, and like the longest part was the sound design. And I mean, it was a lot of like juggling friends who worked in commercials and stuff to be like, you know, fit it in when you can, but we do have to eventually get this thing done. The edit. I did the edit. I did the color. And then the whole like conform of it, and then we submitted to festivals in the fall. So all in all, it's kind of like a year process on the short, and then it took, I think, 30 festivals we were rejected from before we finally got into something. And then once we did, which was in the beginning of 2017, we got into quite a few. It just we just needed one to like start it going, to break the ice, and then like 2018 was kind of like the festival year. So it was like a more or less 2 year cycle for the short. Yeah. Oh, I think you're on mute.
You're muted. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm muted because my kids were screaming. They were like, ah! And I was like, oh no. Vanntey?
Okay. Yeah. And for me, I had to sell the story, so to some company to sponsor for it, and I was like trying to convince a medical company to sponsor for this one, and then we like spent about 4 months from the writing and storyboard, because I spent a lot of time in pre-production and only 2 days for production shooting. And then we spent about a month and a half, 2 months for editing. After we finished shooting, the COVID COVID-19 started, and then everyone was like worried and nobody wants to work. So it was like delaying a little bit about editing, you know, because people like keep distancing. So, but this is the period that we have to edit our movie, but the editor is have to keep distancing from the director. So everyone is like keep distancing from each other. So we spent like 2 months on editing, and luckily COVID-19 is not so bad here. So we get back together and we work on the film and we finish it, and then we send it to Cambodian Film Festival. And my message for the young filmmaker, because I'm a young filmmaker too, is to focus on the story. I think the story is the thing that you can sell your movie, you know. For me, I wouldn't sell my movie if I cannot write a good synopsis or a log line, and if I'm not good at convincing the customer to sponsor for my movie. So my advice is to focus on the movie. I think now you can film with any like digital camera, it's easy, but the story is very important. That's my advice to the younger filmmaker who want to do it. And because if you are Cambodian and you're in Cambodia and you want to make movie, you have to willing to sell your story to different people, so they would sponsor for it. At least you have a chance to make something, you know. My movie doesn't cost a lot. It's about 5,000. Yeah. But we really spend money like carefully so that we have something.
Yeah, which by 5,000 by Cambodian standard, I think is a lot. I know I talked to a lot of people about making short films in Cambodia. And, you know, so budget. But anyways, so thank you guys for joining us today. And again, all these wonderful short films is going to be available for you guys to watch and screen digitally, virtually, online. Go to www.cambodiatownfilmfestival.com. And yeah, we will see everyone there. Bye.
Everyone.
Thanks for being here, guys.